Yeah.
Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and we are at full time as Celtic have drawn 2-2 with Bologna in the Europa League. I'm joined, as I was for half-time and pre-match, by Stevie Ray and Anthony. Hail, hail, guys. Good to see you. And how are we feeling after that one?
Officially, I'm 47, but I feel 62. I definitely aged about 15 years in that second half. That was brutal. But do you know what it reminded me of? I don't know if you remember Barcelona away, David Marshall, all that stuff, just hanging on for dear life. That's what it felt like. But I felt like we actually played better when we went 2-2 than we did when we were 2-0 and 2-1 up. So it's an unbelievable result in the grand scheme of things. To lose 2 goals from being 2-0 up is disappointing, but you know, we're down to 10 men away in Italy against a pretty decent side. You know, you've got to take that. We wanted a point before the game. We've got a point. So, yeah, chuffed. Brilliant performance by Trusty. Unbelievable.
Anthony?
Sorry. Wait.
I think I'm 73. I'm about to ages with Martin O'Neill after that. That was the longest 50 minutes of my life for quite some time. I mean, to come away with a point there is tremendous. I hope we can just take that gutsy performance into Sunday at Tynecastle. You know, obviously everyone has to recover now, but it was some performance. Everyone dug in. Well, Austin Trusty, amazing. But I thought the back four, even Schmeichel, he pulled off some amazing saves. Unsighted for the second goal, unfortunately. I think he thought Liam Scales was ready to get ahead on it. That didn't happen. And yeah, like I said, 2-2 each. We still did 21 minutes to play. I'm going, we just have to get past the 84th minute because we seem to be conceding a goal every sort of 12 to 13 minutes. I thought if we can get to the 84th minute, it's still 2 each. We're in with a shout. And then we managed to sort of dig in. Bit questionable on Nygren. I don't know if he was the right substitution at half-time. I thought the first goal, we didn't really close down as quickly as we would have liked. Slight criticism, but I just feel that in the end, tremendous, just gutsy. McGregor, Engels, Maeda put a shift in and a half. I mean, I thought when Kenny was coming on, Maeda was coming off, but it was like, no, you're getting deployed on the right wing and just to keep going sort of thing. So to do that on a yellow, and you know, and we actually ended up having 1 or 2 wee chances as the game was going on as well. Maybe to jag it at 3-2, but that was a bit of bravery shown by Martin O'Neill to sort of send our centre halves up for some of the throw-ins when a lot of other managers would have just said, no, stay back. So actually putting them on the back foot just once or twice so that last 5-10 minutes, maybe just bought us a little bit of breathing room and just got us played in their half just for a few minutes, just to give the defence a chance just to catch a breather. And just we mentioned to Anthony Ralston, I thought he did incredibly well. A couple of really timely challenges when he came off the bench. He's been coming in for a lot of criticism of late, and I feel that he really stuck the foot in when he came on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the backups, the squad players, for as much as they divide opinion, like in games like tonight, I think they put in, like Ralston, I think in that type of situation did everything you would want him to do. And even Johnny Kenny, we mentioned it at halftime. I think it was you that said, Anthony, a lot of empty running, might have been a bit of the doggies and everything he was tasked with. There was a bit of that, but a few times he got on the ball, like definitely put them on the back foot, played a nice one down the channel for Nygren, and obviously ended up going nowhere. I don't know how I feel coming out the end of the second half, really, to be honest. I feel like it was really kind of deja vu to European away days growing up with Martin O'Neill, where you can look good, you can score a good goal, you might even take the lead, but the dodgy ref and then like maybe a decent goal from the opposition or a spawny goal on some occasions could go and undo the result and take the shine off the way we've played and all the rest of it. I'm really happy we came out of it with a draw, because ultimately before the game we would have all taken that, especially when you had the context of down to 10 men. I did say at halftime, and I'll kind of reiterate it because the comments are all over it. I do think I know it's a really crap red card from Metate, but like he is very experienced. Like that's just, poor from him. And there's a lot of, he's cost us 2 points tonight in the chat. So I acknowledge it and I've put it out there. So you can all kind of, carry on with that one from the first half. But in the second half, I think Engels really did continue to shine, as did Trusty, throughout the entire game. And there was points where when we were defending, we had like a back six with like a three in front of them of Engels. Sometimes it would be Maeda, sometimes it would be Nygren and McGregor. And I thought Engels was brilliant all over the place in terms of just keeping tight with them and tactically, everybody was so well switched on today. The second half, we kind of spoke about it at halftime. You don't want to be the architects of your own downfall when you're down to 10 men and leading a game by conceding all the territory. And I was worried about that in spells, but I thought Engels actually was quite high a lot of the time by comparison to some of the other players. And, it gave us a bit of a shape, and we kind of kept the defence from retreating all the way back to the 6-yard line, if you get me. So I thought we had a nice kind of balance and we didn't invite too much of that on. I'm a bit disappointed with the second goal because all first half, but 2 or 3 times, their corners, they loved like hitting it to the edge of the box for someone to shoot, but they'd done it in the first half. And for him to get that time and space for that one, the keeper, whatever, maybe thinks someone's going to get on it, but how we are letting somebody get loose on the edge after seeing what they did first half. Yeah, we're down to 10 men, I get it, but I found that kind of element of it disappointing. But I think with the exception of Hatate, like I don't think anyone leaves that game without pass marks or some sort of cred off the back of it. How do you feel, Stevie, individually, collectively, standouts or otherwise?
Tonight, everything about this team was the complete opposite from Nancy's time. Up against adversity, well organised, just faced up everything that was thrown at them. I'm disappointed. Obviously, with every goal, you can sort of scrutinise it and say we should have stopped it. You've got to stop the cross, but as soon as the guy gets the header on it near now, sort of halfway in the box, and it loops over, then that's usually when it's real danger. And obviously, Schmeichel's unlucky that it's kind of went in the net, because it could easily have bounced off his knee and went somewhere else, because there was a couple of instances where there was a shot, I think it hit Scales and could have went in, but it went wide when the keeper was diving the wrong way. There was one that hit Engels that went over the bar, so we did get a wee bit of luck, but I think tonight we earned that luck, just through grit, determination, just that. I think as soon as it went 2-2, I felt as if the team were almost like, we are not losing this game, and they almost moved up the pitch 5-10 yards maybe. And to go back to your point about we got corners late on and we were putting Trusty and Scales up, I think that was to mentally put it in Bologna's head that we're still going for this. If you throw too many people forward, we will come for you. And I think not so much the first one, but definitely the second counter-attack, I thought Johnny Kenny should have played Maeda in. The chance was there, and he just didn't. He almost, I don't want to say bottled out it, but I think he was unwilling to give the possession away.
Went safe.
But I think he went really safe. But do you know what? At the end of the day, we came here looking for a point. We got a point under, really hard circumstances. I think what we wanted out of the whole week was to come out of it with minimum a point tonight and not be 9 points behind on Sunday. So it rolls on to Sunday. This has got to build massive confidence for this team. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Certainly on track for a good week in that regard, going away to Italy up against adversity and coming out with a point. And it's in our own hands, as I think Anthony Met said a moment ago. Final game against Utrecht, and like all these all the players that really played tonight, the only worry is the whole Thursday Sunday thing with regards to Sunday, because turnaround time isn't exactly fantastic in that regard. But they all must be feeling 10 times better than what they were 3 weeks ago or something like that after that, because I think if we'd got this result and it was 11v11, it would still be like, oh, we got a draw, it was fine. But that extra level of adversity for the ones that played the match, of being backs against the wall 10 minutes, I think we hope, and I think there's a lot in the chat that echoes it, that it can be a spark, it can be like a galvanising moment that we kind of thought Feyenoord was, and then Wilfred Nancy maybe undone all of that quite quickly. So Martin's maybe got us a kind of second run at it. Donovan, we mentioned him before. Again, I think this kid, we mentioned pre-match, I think it was around Ferguson and such, wasn't it? Like, your experiences make you. And whatever Kobe Donovan's Celtic career is going to go on to be, this Europa League campaign that he's played in so far is really gave him some unreal experience to start on a really strong footing for us. I kind of mentioned it before, but Ralph, I'll kind of come on to you in terms of how you feel the second half went from the subs. We had 4 subs in total. There's a few of them gaining some chat in the chat. I think when you look at, we need Ralston to come on at the end of the game. If we were in an ideal situation and it was Alistair Johnson that started the game, and you then need to look at bringing on a Kobe Donovan in the future, or maybe right now, or even just right now, a Ralston, like that's the kind of level you're hoping for these guys, is when it's like the last 10 minutes, it's backs against the wall. We really bloody need you because of some sort of circumstance that's arisen. Going to don't let us down. Now, some of these guys have let us down in the past. I'm not saying they haven't, but I do think in our time of need, in our hour of need tonight, Ralston came off the bench and did what was needed. And I think Kenny knew the job and ran his wee socks off. But yeah, could have made some better decisions. There's no getting away from that. But I think that the squad level, I don't want to say it went up in my estimations a little bit, but I think everyone who played can feel good about themselves, certainly.
I think everybody got the memo that they had to go on and put in a shift. And you know, we're hoping this is a spark and we can take the Tynecastle, but it was obviously the 11 or 10 on the park, plus Bernardo, plus Nygren, plus Ralston, and Kenny. So all the subs coming on did contribute in one way, shape, or another. So collectively played really well. I think you have to say everyone got pass marks, or most people played above their average. Obviously, except for Atati, obviously. But I felt Kieran Tierney had an excellent game. I thought every time that ball came across, he got a head on it or he drew a foul. He was tremendous. That lad he was playing against was quick, and he got the better of him once or twice. But those crosses coming in, having an experienced defender like Kieran Tierney at the back stick just makes the job so much easier. Trusty, I mean, we've said it multiple times, the number of headers he got, blocks he got throughout the game, first half, second half. Scales didn't really put a foot wrong either. He, again, very solid. And that they're the best sorts of games for Liam Scales. When the ball's constantly getting pinged into the box, it actually felt a bit like Bologna, a bit like Celtic when we are at home trying to beat a team that's camped in the box. Like it was kind of like roles reversed, Yeah, it's pretty much what it was like, and it's like this is us, but not. So to come away with a draw and to keep it tight enough to get that point, and like I say, keep that Europa qualification alive, because that was ultimately what we all wanted coming into this. We got what we wanted. It wasn't quite what we were expecting, but this season's never really been what we've been expecting, and it's just like I say, that's in one way it's frustrating, I suppose, but in another way it's exciting, because you sit down to watch a game with Celtic, and at the moment you can get just about anything at the moment. But like I said, we'll take it. Hopefully everyone recovers. I don't think anybody came off looking injured. They're probably a bit of cramp and a bit of soreness and whatnot, but get the recovery in, and like I said, we roll on to Sunday.
Stevie?
I hope the performance for Trusty kills the weakest piss, comment that was made against him. He threw himself in front of everything. He even stopped across with his nuts, So he just threw absolutely everything at it. It was a colossal performance. I think he's been the one out of the three big signings from last summer that didn't get as much criticism in regards to the fee, but I think his fee was totally justified with that type of performance. We've seen it before in Atalanta where he was outstanding, and once again in Italy he's backs against the wall. We don't win. We don't get out of there if we're playing with a Murray or Welsh or somebody alongside Scales. That Trusty's a massive part of what we got tonight out of that result. I've seen on my iPad he was doing an interview, so I'll be interested to hear his take on the game. He comes out with a lot of Americanisms, to be honest, but he must have get man of the match to be doing the interview, so that's what I think anyway.
Well, scored the goal in that defensive performance on top. It's a very well-earned man of the match award, and I wonder in that post-match interview if his voice is any higher after that shot to the breadbasket he had. And Trusty and Scales, like, are they the heroes that we've always wanted and never knew it? They were always here right in front of us. Is it that meme? Is it that cliche that's happening before us? I'm on record myself as saying, like, Scales would, getting someone that's very much better than them is going to be quite expensive. But now I think you look at the pair of them, and we all know we need an centre back, but getting someone who would put clearly either one of them on the bench is going to need to be a really good player, and really good players tend to cost a few quid. They tend to cost some money, and it's one of those ones. But I think Trusty, fantastic. goes along with Scales as well. Like they've both had great European performances. There's a lot of people in the chat saying the better the opposition, the better they play. Kind of comes into that whole weakest piss thing again. That was against like Dundee or something like that, wasn't it? And we've seen him in SPFL action. I forget there was another game this season, probably under Nancy, where someone like got into his head. I forget who it was, and was it maybe that Ibrahim Said? Was it in the Motherwell match? It might have been. So, big games like this is hopefully, he learns from these other things and he kind of brings that into the run of the mile matches as well as the big occasion. But yeah, Trusty, if he has man the match, very, very well deserved. And I'm kind of struggling on other superlatives or other good stories to come out of this, because it's a very well earned point. It does feel like a kick in the Trusties, considering we're 2-0 up, but I think all things being equal, I think considering our first goal is a bit of a gift. Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of come out the game and accept.
I think you have to thank Pep Guardiola for that first goal, because he's got keepers all around the world believing that they can play it out from the back. And it was actually funny, the commentator said in the first 12 minutes that their coach is actually referred to as the Peterloo Pep. So that insistence on everything has to be played out the back, and I thought that's suiting us down to a T, because Maeda was just herring around. And I think if he hadn't have picked up that book in early doors, then you'd probably have seen even more of it. But obviously had to rein it in a wee bit. But it's an absolute gift. I mean, that first couple of minutes, and as I said at halftime, we could have been 2-0 up, because Yang had a really, really good chance right after that. The keeper had committed himself.
It's an unbelievable save, though. Even though
it's still a good save. It's still a good save. He recovered, but he was on his knees. I mean, he was lucky in a way, but it could have been 2-0. And then we score from our corner. And I mean, you can't say that happens very often for Celtic. I mean, one of our criticisms is we don't score enough from set pieces, but to score...
Well, that's two in a week. We got one against Falkirk last week as well. So
it's changing. We're turning our corner. But yeah, I mean, like I say, 2 goals in Europe. I mean, I did say beforehand that Bologna had been leaking goals, as much as, they're having a bit of a turbulent season, but that won't help matters much. I don't think the fact that they had 60 minutes with 10 men and 70, was it 60, 65 minutes with 10 men and couldn't get a win. So that's their problem. But we'll take a point and get back on the plane and back to Glasgow.
Scales for me isn't a centre half that you want in your team if you want to impose your game on the opposition, but he's definitely the guy you want in your team when it's backs to the wall stuff, where it's, bodies on the line and headers have to be won. So there's a place for Scales long term, even though some people may think, and I'm probably in amongst that we could look to upgrade. But I think if we can upgrade the right hand centre half to have Scales and Trusty as your left centre backs, I think that's a pretty strong left centre defence.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. And I was thinking about that in the game where, like, Tuneke and Yang, for example, I think we could all agree they're fine players. They're pretty handy, and Yang especially has kind of started to grow on everyone. But if those guys were your second string, we would be in some position, man. Like if I was thinking, I forget what point of the game it was first half, but I was thinking, imagine you had Tuneke and Yang to come into the game rather than, what we had. You would probably feel a lot better about them and the squad in general. Not saying they didn't do great, don't deserve to start, far from it, but I think you all kind of know what I'm saying. But yeah, we leave Italy with a point. We are now up to 23rd. Now, there is a bunch of 8 o'clock kickoffs, which I'm sure all of you are aware of. Our final game is Utrecht. Now,
Rangers are there. Rangers are down there. They are there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Rangers are playing
Ludogorets
just now. Yeah. So you really
you want Rangers to do us a favour.
Yeah,
they won't.
You want as many teams below us, as possible. Because even a draw against Utrecht could potentially sneak you through, but obviously a win gets you through, absolutely. So you want as many teams who have not played yet, that could go above us tonight to stay below us.
So I've not looked at the full thing yet, or even how the result went. I can see it's maybe not kicked off yet, but I can see that Utrecht have did a lot of rotations for this game. So they've already obviously they're on 1 point at this stage. I'm not even too sure exactly who they're playing tonight. I can go and get that. But if they've already chucked the towel in for this match, they're definitely going to chuck the towel in for when we go and play them. Yeah, it's an 8 o'clock kickoff for Utrecht. And not that anyone cares about the Utrecht team, but yeah, they've rotated their whole defence. their main players. Barkas isn't playing, one or two others. So,
who are they playing tonight?
And they are playing Genk at home, O's team. So
Genk, I think, maybe above us. So you'd be looking for Genk to at least get a draw out of that.
Yeah. So, Utrecht in the final game. Look forward to that. I forget the date of it, but it'll be the last Thursday in January.
I think it's next week.
And
it's next week.
Yeah, probably will be. See, I'm all over the place tonight. Sorry, guys. So yeah, thanks for the catch. And I think we're looking good for it, And I've heard some people saying like, "Oh, Europa, we don't need it, and focus on the league." And I get that, right? It's funny I'm saying this on Acsom because I had Paul John at my place and we were chatting about the contradictions of being a Celtic fan, because it's just covered in contradictions at all times. We moan about the coefficient being bad, but we're happy to lose all these games and not care about that. We're happy to get knocked out of the Europa League, but when we're in the Champions League, everyone says, "Oh, we would win the Europa League," and it's just a layer cake of contradictions that we all indulge in. I'm not pointing fingers or anything like that, But
Celtic's lack of ambition in Europe. Celtic's lack of ambition in Europe is why I no longer have a season ticket. Yeah. I gave it up 6 years ago when I realised that the club were just playing at it. Let's win the league. I always feel that winning the league is phase one of winning the league. Win the league is to get into the Champions League. And when you don't get into the Champions League, it just feels like the next season is just got a cloud hanging over it for 6 months until maybe you've done okay in the Europa. We're still talking about the Kairat game even now. The Kairat game will go to distant memory if Celtic get through this and then progress a couple of rounds where people start to go, wait a minute, we could be a serious European team again. I never ever want to write off Europe, and I always feel that saying forget Europe, concentrate in the league, it just lets the board off the hook, and it just backs up what Ross Desmond was trying to put forward at the AGM. So I'm never for it. I always want us to do well in Europe, regardless of where we are in the league and what's coming up.
I think the other thing you've got to remember is that players develop when they're playing in Europe against European opposition. It increases their value. It makes them better players. Colby Donovan, Arnie Engels, they'll be better for that game tonight. The next time they're in that situation, their performance will be better. And then these are the sorts of benchmarks that other European teams use when an offer does come in for Arnie Engels in the future. They'll go back to performances like this. And they went, we went to Italy and battled away with 10 men for most of a match. So you can't underestimate that. And yeah, it's so short-sighted by the board. And we've kind of avoided the board talk all coverage tonight. But, this shows what is possible, and not only that, you can then use it as a springboard in your league campaign as well, so you can find a bit of form and get other players playing. Yeah, like I said, it's a no-brainer. I totally agree with Stephen. We should not be writing off Europe. I know it's playing twice a week and all the rest of it, but we should be good enough to do that and still be able to take care of the league as well. Under normal circumstances, obviously this has been a bit of an abnormal season, but we'll see how we go from here.
I believe a fully fit Celtic side under Martin O'Neill would have won that game tonight.
Yeah,
I think that, and that just shows you where we could be, under a manager who knows how to get results in Europe. Yeah. With a bit of backing, there's no excuse for it. We can definitely fight on two fronts. If we're going to sacrifice anything, sacrifice the League Cup and worry about the Scottish Cup, into April and May. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. In terms of for myself coming into the Europa League, even after the Kairat game in the summer window, like the way that Europe's reformatted over the last 2 years, like I kind of see the Champions League, obviously you get 8 games once you get into it. Europa is the same. But the kind of benchmark I'm looking at for Celtic in general is, like, again, where all things are rosy and you're winning leagues and qualifying for Champions League, is playing those 10 games 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5 seasons. And it was great to do it last year. And I think it would be a huge loss of momentum. Imagine we finished 25th in this, or imagine even lower. I know we're doing well and we're on the way up, but wind back 4 weeks, you know what I mean? And imagine how it would have looked if, look where Rangers are. Imagine we were down there. It would really undo a lot of the momentum and the work that the club has done in Europe, whether it's meant to or not. under Brendan and Ange with some of the results we've had. Well, Ange didn't have too many actually, did they? So I think it's really important. And I say, even if we get 10 games in the Europa League, it's just great reps for everyone that's in the squad for next season, because we should be, any of these league phases, finishing below 24th isn't really something we should ever be entertaining, for the most part. You're going to play 2 pot 4s, 2 pot 3s, 2 pot 2s, 2 pot 1s. No matter what pot we're in, we should have a couple of games at home that we fancy getting some points in. And as you can see with this, last season it was 10 points was enough. Some people didn't qualify with 10, just to add that in. This season, it looks like it's going to be about there the same. And I remember when Martin O'Neill was the Celtic manager, and we had a group stage of 3 opponents we would play home and away. We used to always, you guys are the same age as me, or thereabouts, you probably remember this, but we used to think, we'll get our 9 points at home, and if we can get 1 point on the road, we'll get to 10, and we should finish in second. That was always the grand design, wasn't it? And this format kind of, again, that's kind of maybe the schematics of how we're going to go about it. So I want us get to 10 games as like a default, as par. It's not good. It's just like, that's where we start, it's not being in outside the top 24.
To see, I'm be a bit controversial here. To see Rangers that low down in the Europa League is actually unusual for them. They actually seem to play this competition really well. I think there were quarterfinals last year, final in 2022. There have been numerous last 16s in the last 5-6 years. So it is possible. Obviously we'd always want to be in the Champions League, but if we do find ourselves in the Europa League, we should always be looking to get, to the latter stages. And I brought this point up with Paul John last week, but I actually said it after the recording, and I noticed a few people have spoken about it, that Martin O'Neill could be the first manager since Martin O'Neill to win a knockout tie.
Yeah, well, there he is. Aye.
I don't even know if he knows that it's a fact or a stat that Celtic haven't won since Barcelona back in 2004.
It's incredible, isn't it? And whenever I hear that, I always need to double check, because I was at Inter Milan at home, and that game felt like a win. It was a 2-each draw, sure, wasn't it?
Yeah.
3-3. But it felt like a win. That was some game, Guidetti overhead kicks and stuff like that, So, but yeah, it's an incredible statistic. And wouldn't it just be proper football romance? And I know we're getting a wee bit ahead of ourselves here, right? But
I know Martin O'Neill,
yeah, Martin O'Neill, get knocked out, and you're in this cup, and he's winning games away
from. I was there in the final. It's always the one that got away from me. I still, every now and again, it comes up into my mind. It was an amazing run. It was an amazing day, Seville, and the heat was incredible, and the game was unbelievable, and obviously we fell short in the end through a sending off, ultimately, but and a couple of goalkeeping mistakes. But one thing that came into my mind when Martin came back just after Nancy's sacking was, how ironic would it be, or how romantic would it be if Martin O'Neill won the Europa League, just to end those demons 20 odd years ago. I can't see it. I think there's a few teams more stronger than us, and we definitely need to get our stuff together. But I nearly said something else there.
So we'd have to sign 4 quality players to, I think, give us the shot in the arm that we need to maybe have a serious sort of challenge, I would think. Obviously, we've got our big Tams in the door, so that's one. But yeah, we badly need another 3 players just to round out the squad, at least, just to sort of give us a bit of depth, a bit of cover, and especially in, I think, that right wing position. But we'll see. But yeah, I think the other thing as well, overlooked here, guys, is that if we do get into the next stage as well, it makes us more attractive as well. So if there is somebody looking to come on loan, it's like, well, there's still going to be some European football for them to play, because my understanding is we can adjust our squads after the.
I think you're allowed to.
Yeah. So
we've got 2 already.
Yeah. Okay. Well. So yeah, but we'll see. But like I said, I just think that the longer you can go in Europe, the more attractive you are as a club for players in Europe looking to come across. So again, it's just another plus, and this is what we should be doing anyway. But Yeah.
I would be shocked if the new striker had brought that up in conversation about, you're still in Europe, what's your thoughts? If the club turned around and said, well, Europe's not really important this season, we're going to go for the league. I don't think you're signing anybody with that attitude. These guys want to come and play European football. They want to play for trophies. They want to play in the big derby matches. They want to play in front of full stadiums. Obviously, Hearts is 18, 20,000, but it's still going to be a great atmosphere and a packed stadium. So these are the games that these guys want to play in and show. They know it's going to be on TV across the UK where they can show themselves up. So absolutely, they want to play in as many big games as possible. And for the attitude of some of the supporters to say, I forget Europe, it's all about the league. I just don't. It doesn't wash with me, I'm afraid.
Yeah. And I think with the Shvankara, I'm struggling to say it properly, coming into the team, he's watching this tonight. I'm sure he'd maybe watched some highlights or something. He's definitely not sat and watched a full match. I don't think players are that way inclined. You maybe expect that of a manager, but he's definitely watched the game tonight. I would go on a limb and say that. And he's probably going to be bouncing into training tomorrow. Get me into this team. I'm up for it. Let's get this back on track. And that could be great. I kind of feel in a slight way, because of how bad everything was. Let's see the summer signings, with maybe the exception of Taneke. I know Negren started okay, but most of them, it felt really like they signed and they're like, oh, what have I come into here? This is not nice. This isn't fun. The club's in disarray and yada yada. And from your Iheanachos to your Balaquishas, I don't know. I just felt like there was a real. They came in and then it was like, oh, this is actually kind of mincing here, Whereas Kavankara is coming in, it's like, oh, cool, we're progressing in Europe, and Martin O'Neill's the manager, and things are on an upward trajectory. So I might even just give any new players that do come in, Kavankara being the first one, a little springboard to their start, where it's on the up and there's momentum and some positivity they can go along with it. And you had a striker like that into us with how much we've been missing this year. And it could, I think we need a lot more. Martin O'Neill said as much, the whole chat saying as much, don't get me wrong, but a guy that hits the back of the net changes teams, at all levels, and it doesn't matter if it's Kavankara or it's Chris Sutton or whatever. Somebody that scores goals, wins you points, and it just changes the complexion of everything,
Well, if you've got Chivinchara who can come out, starts or comes off the bench, and you've got Iheanacho back fit as well, so presumably he's not too far away as well. All of a sudden, you've massively upgraded that position to a degree. Then Maeda can go back to his left wing position, which is his preferred option. So then you've got Tanekti and Maeda playing for that one position. So all of a sudden, you've got options. Whereas at the moment, as we said at the start, the team pretty much picked itself, with the exception of the right back and that number 10 role. Everything else was sort of locked in because that's all we've got. So if Sirachi gets back again, and then, like I said, just need a few more just reinforcements just to sort of bolster. Just chances are we may pick up an injury or two in the run into the end of the season. So it's all well and good saying we've got enough now, or not, we don't have enough now, but at starting 11 now, but you've got to expect that maybe somebody will take a knock or whatever. So you just need that little extra bit of depth. And this is all on the assumption that we don't lose any players either. Because who knows? You don't know with this board what they're going to do. So we really, really, just like I said, Martin needs that back, and he deserves that back. And I know there's a lot of hate for Atati tonight. He's stuffed up massively, but I don't think anyone's put an offer in for him this window. And I think a lot to do with that as well was the fact that he came on the back of an injury at the end of last season. I think in an ideal world, he'd have moved on last summer, but because he picked up that injury, that's kind of stopped that from happening. And then he's here for another 6 months, and it's kind of rumbled on sort of thing. So he's probably stayed 6 months too long. But as Stephen said, he's 28 now, maybe turned 29. So that big move for him is probably not going to eventuate. He's probably a bit like a Kyogo now, where he might have to settle for something a bit less. But anyway, that's speculation and all the rest of it. But I think Maeda's committed himself to the end of the season because he knows that he wants to be playing most games to get into that Japan squad for the World Cup. I'm happy with that. He put in a shift and a half to that. I don't think anyone can doubt his work rate and his mentality. So I'd happily definitely keep my eyes at the end of the season and then sort of go from there. Hopefully, has a massive World Cup, and then the board, the club's got a decision to make at that point. But for now, is everyone stays, and I can say another 3 players in, and then we give this title a real shake. We'll see how we go.
Fingers crossed we don't see anyone leaving. The way things are. Stevie, final thoughts from you, buddy?
Well, you're talking about like, potentially. Obviously, we still need to beat Utrecht next week, but you don't want to be one of the players that drops out the squad. The chances are Osmond and Johnson will drop out just because of the injury. So, but you're looking at one more spot to be dropped out. So you don't want to be that guy. So there'll be people pushing. I think Europe will help push the guys. They want to be in the team for those big games as well. Because, hopefully, let's get through next week and we don't have any more incidents like tonight. But I think tonight it was great to be 2-0 up, but you always feared the worst at half time, being 2-0 down. You knew it was going to be backs against the wall, and the fact that they scored within 15 minutes of the restart. You were really up against it, but I'm really proud of the team, and they should be proud to themselves the way they battled and basically got that point, because it was a gutsy second half performance. I actually, just on the second goal, I actually thought they could have been called for offside because the guy was standing.
I really thought that too, by the way.
I've still to see a replay on it, but he definitely blocks the view. The ball's past Schmeichel before he even sees it, so I'm not going to blame Schmeichel for that because some of the saves he pulled off, was excellent. So yeah, I think it's been a good night for the team. It's been a good night for the manager, and it's just up to the men upstairs to get the finger out and get the checkbook out and get the money spent, because we absolutely need, I would say, right centre back, right winger, and maybe another striker. And I think would be then it's game on, isn't it?
Big time. Any final thoughts from you, Anthony?
Well, it was well worth getting up at 1:45 a.m. for. So yeah, I got my money's worth. Yeah, thanks for having us on. And yeah, like I said, onwards and upwards. Take the point, get the result in Utrecht next week, and complete that phase of the Europa League. And yeah, just all eyes on Tynecastle on Sunday, and let's hope we can go there and get 3 points and put pressure on them. And yeah, it's been a good night. I mean, we've had our ups and downs, but end of the day, we got what we all thought we'd hope for. So yeah, so I'm happy enough, and we'll carry on.
It's going to be a major 9 days. We've got the next Europa League game, obviously Hearts at the weekend, and then after that, the transfer window still got to be wrapped up. And I'm not too maybe the Europa League is a carrot for some of the people on the block, but more than anything, people are saying don't try and predict the boards. Just look at their history. When they know they've qualified for Europe, they tend to spend another couple of quid. So maybe the last couple of days in the window, maybe they feel a wee bit more confident to throw a few quid about. Stevie,
just quickly, I was going to say, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Celtic beat Hearts at the weekend. I wouldn't be shocked if the Green Brigade are allowed back in for the Utrecht game next week. I think they would see that as the ideal, let's olive branch, if you want to call it. We're back in the title race. We're going for it in Europe. We're going to try and get through. We need all the backing, blah blah blah. But they definitely need the result on Sunday. Sorry.
Great point. And thanks for adding it in, Steve. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone that's tuned in live and loud, pre-game, half-time. Thanks for putting up with me. I'm trying my best to keep on top of the chat. The chat on this channel is mental, and it just flies away. As well as trying to do my best Acsom impersonation, keeping it the same format, same tempo, and all that good stuff. So thanks to everyone that's persevered with us throughout. Enjoy the rest of your night. If you're out and about, travel safe, stay out of trouble. Enjoy your night. It's well earned, especially from all the boys in green and white. And what was the outro again? I've forgotten it again. But Acsom tomorrow, 12:30. Like, subscribe, share, and retweet, all that good stuff. We'll see you there tomorrow. Stevie and Anthony, it's been an absolute pleasure, guys. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Hail.
Good night.